Hey folks, in this lesson we're taking a step into some rudimentary lead guitar using our E minor pentatonic scale. I know it's a moment you've been waiting for. And the beautiful thing is, I'm using the word scale. We are working with 6 notes, basically. I want to establish some territory here in the first 3 frets of the neck. I want you to think about, as a foundation, a simple E minor chord. So this is likely familiar, right? I've got 2 fingers on strings 4 and 5 at the 2nd fret. Everything else is open. The E minor pentatonic scale just walks right out of this chord. It's just that because we're not accustomed to holding down any treble strings, you might not immediately see the connection. But if I do this, consider that in the chord we had 2nd fret of the D string, open G, open B, open E, and so each one of those strings, the scale is simply adding another note. From open G, we're adding the 2nd fret A. From open B, we're adding the 3rd fret D. From open E, we're adding the 3rd fret G. And all of those notes, by the way, we have an open G, don't we? So here's the fretted G. We have an open D, here's the fretted D. These patterns are just repeating the same notes over and over again. The fact that there's so many fingerings gets kind of convoluted, but this is why we're starting so simply. So the first thing I want you to do is just to play this little scale. Fret 2 of the D, open G, 2nd fret, open B, 3rd fret, open E, 3rd fret. So that is a scale. I'm playing from E up to high G. Never mind that the whole scale might do this. We'll get there. But understand that in actually playing a solo, you don't need to be able to play that entire scale. And in fact, especially in sort of more fundamental playing styles, we really don't need a lot of notes either. That's part of the whole point of the blues now, isn't it? So I'm simply playing a little melodic figure, and you're going to hear me use the word figure, gesture, cell. We use the word lick all the time, but I like figure, gesture, cell to imply that we're just playing with a couple of notes, a tiny musical statement. So in this case, it's fretting the 3rd fret of the high E, giving it a very slight nudge with my arm to bend. Not so much to bend a half step, I don't want that, or a whole step. I just want to hear that note move a little. And so I'm just applying a little pressure from underneath, using my wrist and arm. And then immediately to the open string. And I'm making this a musical statement by putting it on the beat in a specific way. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Simply choosing those 2 notes in that order, with that little gesture, that little movement on the first note, and putting it on the beat consistently with 1, 2, 3, makes it a musical statement. It doesn't take much for something to start to sound like a song. Now, one of the other fundamental concepts in blues melody is the idea of call and response. And this simply means that a statement is answered by another statement. Call, response, question, answer, however you want to think of it. So in this case, my answer is this lick. Open B string, 3rd fret of the B string, and open E string. Now listen to these 2 back and forth. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now rhythm is neat because rhythm works in multiple layers. And so I can say that the call and response is between first half of the lick, second half of the lick. But I can also say that the repetition of the lick is a response to the first statement of the lick. 1, 3, 4, 1. with an added little connector, and this is the bending lick that you learned a couple of lessons ago. Difference is I'm using my middle finger this time just because of where my hand happens to be. You could do all of this with index middle, but it feels very natural to me with middle and ring, and so I'd recommend it. Watch my timing. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So notice how the second half of the lick is a rhythmic variation. We still emphasize beat 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. But instead of 2, 3, the variation is 2, 3, and. Notice the pickup open B string. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1. And then notice how that bending lick sort of creeps in as punctuation after that first pair of call and response licks. Now here's the neat thing. We talked in the previous lesson about how the chords will change underneath this. We go from an E the chord goes to an A, we're going to play the same notes. Now that works beautifully, number one, because this is in the 7th chord, so is this. This note isn't, but it doesn't matter for 2 reasons. Number one, the overall sound of the key and the scale is enough to make it acceptable to your ear. And number 2, the fact that when we land on this note, you've got a pretty good idea of where it's going. Even having only heard it once, and even that, because this language, this vocabulary is so familiar, hearing this high note landing on the E, I'm now going to drop. There's a very good chance we're going back to that E to complete the idea. So now we have a lick that has what I might call a contour, a shape. Wah-ba, boo-dee-da-dum. And even looking at that, there's something fundamental about music here. Variation with the repetition. We go up, down, drop down, down, up, da, da, and ending with the note we started on. So the shape of the whole thing is wah-ba, doo-dee-ba-dum. It's balanced between down and up. It doesn't mean every lick is going to do that. It's not. But it's something worth noticing and something that intuitively you will start to pick up on when you really learn how to improvise. Now, I really just added one little variation here. This figure, ba, be, ba, is actually going with our chord change in that when the chords are going from E to B, I am going to drop from E via the D note in the scale to an open B. And so even with as few notes as I'm using, I'm still working with the chords without having to leave my pentatonic scale. That's part of the beauty of the blues, of course, is that this simple vocabulary opens up so many possibilities for us. So as we do this with the track, I want you to pay attention to a few things. Number one, just being aware of call and response, as I will continue to say, this is rhythmic music. Also being aware of the shape, up, down, up. And on top of that, settling into the pocket so that your strong beats are lining up with the strong beats of the band. Okay, it's time to practice this through. Remember, stay in the pocket. This is music that has a feel. If you need to practice the licks separately, then do. If you're not able to keep up with the licks in time with the track, then you shouldn't be playing with the track yet. You should be learning the licks separately with a metronome, one at a time, or at least moving and counting yourself, and then put it together. Because it's important that you know what you're supposed to be doing once you start playing with the track, and now everything is coming at you in time and you need to anticipate it. You ready? Here we go. You may have noticed there were some variations generally at the end of that 12-bar form, just little tweaks in the melody. And it's important that you, number one, notice that that happened, and number two, are able to pick up on the change. Of course, you've got the tab in the video to work from, and the whole idea is for you to learn what I'm doing, but at the same time, knowing that these variables are actually built into the music. And so even from the beginning, as you are learning things carefully, accurately, meticulously, to know that this is not Mozart, this is not music you play from a score. And so a certain amount of variation is not only par for the course, but expected and part of the music. It's something you'll become more and more comfortable with as you go deeper and deeper into the blues, because ultimately this is music that's about expression, and so there's got to be room for those natural, happy accidents to develop. I'll see you at the next lesson.